Good evening, everybody. My name is Todd Scholl. I serve as the lead learner for the SCEA, Center for Educator Wellness and Learning. We call ourselves COOL. You can find out more about what we do at cool.us. But we are here tonight, as you can tell, with leaders from the South Carolina Education Association who are going to be discussing the legislative agenda for this year. We have a whole host of wonderful people and leaders within our movement who are here to share with you the important legislation that we're keeping an eye on and the ideas that we're trying to advance in our state legislature. Without further ado, I want to introduce our president, Sherry East, and she has a few words she'd like to share, and she's going to introduce some folks to you.
Hey, thank you, Todd, and thank you everyone for joining us tonight on this dreary night, at least in Rock Hill. And I am Sherry East. I'm a high school science teacher from the Rock Hill School District, and I currently serve as the SCEA president. And we're here tonight mainly for two reasons: to go over our legislative agenda and to introduce you to our team of people that are here for you working at the State House when you are so busy teaching our little people and our big people at the school level, because it's very hard as a full-time teacher to keep up with all that goes on in Columbia while you're in school. So they don't make session around our teaching schedule. So we have with us tonight our executive director, Tom Hudson. If you'll give a wave for Tom Hudson. He helps us out over there, and he is listed as your executive director. But we also have with us Capital Consultants, and that is a whole team of people that we've been using for several years, and we brought them on as a consulting group with us to help us have conversations, and because many times there's lots of committee meetings going on at different times, hearings going on at different times. So we have with us Richard Davis. If Richard would give us a big wave there. Thank you, Richard. And then we have Annie Wilson. There we go, Annie. If we could see Annie. Thank you, Annie. And we have Katie, I hope I don't say her wrong, Lecture, who's also part of the Capital Consulting team. We meet with them on Mondays and go over the schedule, and we get a game plan together on Mondays to figure out like who's going where, who's going, who's got what, where are we testifying, what do we got going on, and any kind of inside ball game we get from them through their various connections with different people at the State House. Then we have somewhere, is Mary Rita on at all? Mary Rita Watson is our brand new lobbyist this year. We pulled her out of the classroom. She retired out of the classroom, and she is, she says she has her dream job. I'm not sure after today over there if that was a dream or a nightmare, but she keeps an eye on things for us and brings that teacher perspective to the State House with us and works on that. And then we have our member leader in all of this, Kat Lowe, who's the Berkeley County Education Association president, but she also serves as our legislative chairperson. So I do think she's going to talk to you about something that's very important and unique to us, is that we are a member-led organization. And Kat is going to now tell us about how we came up with our legislative agenda and how you could get involved as a member, rank and file member in this process, and how that works. So Kat, take it away.
Yeah, thank you. So this is a member-driven agenda. So essentially we start out at in about March with our committee group. Our committee group is made up of members from all over the state, representing all of the regions, from the, as you know, you can say from the mountains to the coast, right? We cover everyone. We get together, we talk about different issues that are, that we think are going to be important. We get that down as a part of our agenda. Our legislative process takes 2 years. So once we get those things put together, we bring that forward for our RA meeting, our state meeting, and members that go to the state meeting vote on that agenda. So it is a democracy-driven, member-driven grassroots agenda, and it covers everything from funding to your contract to your classroom to our teachers that are coming down the pipeline, so beginning year teachers to all the way to the end. It's just so important that we get everybody's input, because by having everybody's input, we have the best representation of an agenda that we can show to our legislators to really help us have those teachable moments, that great classroom, that great school, that great district. So let's say, I think that's pretty much it. We vote on all those things. I'm going to introduce one of my leaders, which is Mary Rita, former DDT president, also the former legislative chair. So I've been handed something. I'm trying to take good care of it, and now she's at the State House, following up and making sure that we get all these good things for our classroom. So Mary Rita, if you want to take it away.
Thank you, Kat. Yes, go ahead, Sherry. I know what you're
And
doing.
I was going to say, I neglected two very important people, and one is Caleb Mickler because I couldn't see his little face on there. Caleb is also new to our team. He is in the Office of Public Affairs, but he does all of our communications work, but also some legislative work as well. He helps write testimony. He will meet and greet, and he also goes to the State House with us weekly and works on that. And Amber Holland, who could not be with us tonight, is our NEA resource that's assigned to the southern states, and she also weighs in and attends our meetings with us on Monday. She brings a different perspective and resources to us on some things that she may be hearing from the national. So those are two other people that we do have on our legislative, or what we call our GR team. So now back to Mary Rita and what you're going to tell us about our member survey.
All right, so welcome everyone. Thanks for being here, and thank you, Kat, and everyone on the call. It's important, I think, that you know who we all are and what we're doing. And so Kat explained that we do have the legislative agenda that's created by the membership. You vote on it in the end, and it's broken up into parts. And so, before the session began, it was kind of like, well, what of this whole agenda? Because it's really big. It's got a lot of headers and subheadings. And I'm like, which of these things in this agenda are most important to our members? So if you're on this call, you probably received a survey, and hopefully you answered the survey. There were about 12 or 15 questions on it, and all those questions were surrounding the issues that were on the agenda. And it was really just to find out from you what was most important to you. And then we take those issues, and those are the things that we really need to work on when I'm over in the State House. And so the number one big issue was discipline. And so Sherry's going to talk to you a little bit later about just exactly what we're doing in terms of discipline, and how we can, we don't have a magic bullet, and I've been trying to find it, but it's nowhere because I don't have those in my house anyway. So it's just a thing. We don't have a magic trick, but we have some things that we can do legislatively, possibly to help with this. And we're going to be probably sending out another questionnaire for you to give us more specifics around discipline. Second thing was contracts. That's big, and we're working with that too. And there's some legislation out there that they're going to talk to you about. And then, just the burdensome paperwork that we have is also rated high. So I wanted you to know that we did do the survey. I do have the results. I will be putting them out probably next week. I just have to put them in a format that is smaller than the about 12-page version I have right now. So at this point, Sherry and Kat are going to talk to you a little bit more about that agenda and some of the bills that are going along with it.
Yeah, so I'll start just with we have some big themes that we can think about, right? So first, we want to think about respecting educators as professionals. So, a lot of the things that fall under our agenda are trying to make sure that, we get respected for the profession that we're doing, not just because it's an enormous service to teach children, but it's a very academic endeavor. It takes a lot of certification, classes, training, practice. And so we want those things respected by the legislature, and by doing so, we get to be the best teachers we can be. The second one is providing an education of excellence. So, what supports do teachers need in their classroom, from funding to all of the essential support staff around us to be able to do that type of excellent education? And then finally, just supporting our public schools, because in the end, that support is going to be monetary. And so we are going to have conversations about how we fund our schools. So they fall under kind of a big hat. Sherry is going to talk for a second about tax abatement. Tax abatement might seem like it's way up in the sky, not something that's going to impact your classroom, but it really does, because in the end, how we fund your district, is how we fund your school, is how we fund your classroom. So Sherry, if you want to take a second and talk about tax abatement.
Absolutely. You guys, about 5 years ago, or actually 2017, the Good Jobs First people came to us and said, hey, do you guys realize you're the absolute worst in the nation for tax abatements? And so we're like, what are you talking about? Tell me more. And so we've asked them to do the latest report on tax abatements, and we are still right up there with a couple other states on what a tax abatement's a fancy word for a tax credit or fee in lieu of. It gets kind of complicated, but the main thing to know is in South Carolina, since we've started tracking this, that we have lost $3.1 billion to tax abatements to companies that move here that would have been paying school taxes, that they get out of paying those because we want to entice them to live here. And the report is amazing. I think Todd will mention we're going to have a whole night or a whole nother live stream with them, and they're going to explain the report, how to navigate the website, how to figure out what's going on in your district, to have conversations about that. But we have three asks out of that tax abatement. Is one, that we hold schools harmless. Like, we're not saying don't invite Boeing or BMW or Gallo Wines or Scout Motors to live in South Carolina, because we know, I mean, that's a ridiculous thing for us to try to fight for. That's not going to happen. However, other states like Maryland, Florida, and I forget the other one, they have a written in to the agreements that they hold the school districts harmless. So, or they pay a percentage into the school district. So yes, we welcome you, Scout Motors, to Richland County, but we need you to pay some Richland County school taxes or to help out with certain projects. And the good news of that, they told us a story about Mississippi, that once the companies found out that the schools needed some things, they absolutely just did it for them. So I think there's a communication disconnect on what people know about a tax abatement and what they can get done with it. So that's part of our agenda, to try to move that work forward. The other part would be to include the school districts in these conversations. So when you're having these conversations about, coming to a school district and what that's going to look like, is that someone from the school district, school board needs to be involved when we have these tax abatements. And the third thing is that there needs to be some kind of accountability. They looked at the Volvo deal in Berkeley and they were shocked. I think it's a 40-year deal. And so they're like, nobody gives 40-year deals. Like, that's a long time to have free rent in a place. So we want them to, make sure they're doing what they're supposed to do, make sure they're holding up their end of the bargain. We know that one of the companies that moved to Chester is not holding up their end of the bargain. So we want to make sure that those companies that move here and want to call South Carolina home are doing what's right by the communities that they're living in. So stay tuned for more on tax abatements. It was in our members matter, and we can send it to you if you want to put your email in the chat, if you want to make sure you get a copy of the report. And now I'm going to hand it back over to Kat, who is very passionate about contracts and contract language. And they have a great thing called Signing Day that we hope all of you will participate in this year. So Kat, tell us about some contracts and what we'd like to see in them.
So just as a quick reminder, our contracts are what we refer to as a contract of adhesion. We're going to get a one-pager. It's a take it or leave it. You're not going to be able to negotiate anything inside of that contract. And by signing that contract, you are locked in for that year. You cannot break contract and go to another district without putting into jeopardy your certification. Your name can be taken by your district up to the Department of Education. You can have your certification suspended by doing that. Our contracts have rarely changed in decades. You normally see people when they're signing their contract, they'll say things like, I like my school and I like my principal and I like where I'm at. And so you don't put much thought into the contract, when in the end, everyone should be aware that you're not signing your contract with your school, you're signing your contract with your district. And so what we are looking for is to have the district do a little bit more to create a more professional contract for teachers. First and foremost, we sign a contract without knowing how much we're going to get paid. So with a penalty where you could lose your certification, not knowing what you're going to be paid prior to signing something that significant should be dealt with. We are happy to see right now in the Education Assistance Act that passed the House and is waiting to be heard in Senate committee is some language that talks about making sure that teachers have an awareness of what their salary could be prior to signing. So those are the types of things that we're looking for our contract to have. Also, some language that has the district have some responsibility if they change us from one school to another. In our contracts right now, they can change us without penalty and without us being able to say, this is not a good situation for me. I want to break contract. Like I said, there are penalties for doing that. Lots of language, some ambiguous language in the contract that doesn't tell us things like what we'll be teaching, what grade we'll be teaching. And the Education Assistance Act looks like it's going to have some language in there, but we have things in our agenda that we are trying to engage. We also don't have years of service. So just a lot of transparency that they can just simply put in the contract that comes at no cost to them. We are looking to push for. And so what I would say is the most important aspect of what we're trying to push for in the contract right now is to make it a living, breathing document again, where the districts have to review it year after year after year and improve it to make this be seen as more professional. These contracts are not professional, quite honestly. As those of you that know me, that I usually walk through the State House and hand my contract to legislators who, regardless of what their political persuasions are, look at that contract and say, I would never sign that. And I think it's just really telling to see other people look at our contract and make comments like that. In the end, we need to be professional and tell the legislature what we want and ask for some help on that front. We will be waiting until May 10th. That is actually one of the stipulations that we actually do have. We have a right to wait until May 10th to sign that contract. And so we're asking everyone to pause, read their contracts. Let's have some real conversations about it. Hopefully we'll be seeing some more legislation come down the pipe to help us make a more professional contract for us. But I could go all day on the contract. But again, what we push for is what we're going to get. And I would tell you, when I started working on contracts probably 4 or 5 years ago, many people told me this contract will never change. And I stuck with it, and I talked, and that's what it means to be a member and a part of something like the SCEA. They will take your advocacy and they will help you get that platform that you feel like you need to get your message out there. And so here we are. We're looking at May 10th, signing day. We all hold and wait and sign our contract together because we're a team. We're going to do this together. And the first task of collective action really is just making everybody aware that this contract is a real thing and we are going to take it seriously, and other people need to take this contract seriously. So I hope to see everybody May 10th. I know that's a little bit of a plug, but we are looking at some good changes moving in contracts in that Education Assistance Act. And hopefully, as we move forward, we'll see more contract changes that make your classroom the best classroom it can be.
Okay, I think I'm now up with vouchers, our very least favorite thing going on right now. And who would have thought it would have resurrected out of the grave? So vouchers are up again, once again, and they made it through the Senate very quickly. Just a little recap. We went to the Supreme Court. Us and the NAACP had a lawsuit against the state of South Carolina. And guess what? We won. We won not one time, but twice. We beat back vouchers in the Supreme Court because our Constitution in South Carolina says that you cannot use public funds for private or religious education. Says it's in black and white, and we believe in that. So, but the Senate and the House see differently. So they've decided now the new voucher plan is they're going to fund vouchers with your lottery money. So they've decided that using lottery money somehow makes it less unconstitutional, I suppose, but we feel the same way. So we have sent messages to the Senate because they didn't actually have a hearing. They pushed it straight through to the floor. So they had some meetings prior to session starting, but they did not allow testimony. And then instead of going back to allow testimony, they just said, look, we're going to just hear it on the floor. which they're allowed to do. So then it made it through the Senate pretty easily. Now it's in the House, and it had its first subcommittee hearing today. It could still be going on. Mary Rita was over there. We sent in written testimony, and our whole thing is just we oppose it. So after it, I feel certain it passed out of subcommittee today, and it'll go to full committee, and then it'll go to the House floor. Full committee next.
What's today?
Full committee today.
Today.
They took
and it passed out of full committee.
And it passed. So it will head straight to the House floor, and when and it may be tomorrow. Who knows when they'll start debating that? But it's important for you to let your House member know at this point that you don't approve of vouchers. We want to keep public funds in public schools, and just how you feel about all that. There's lots of talking points we have. There's all kinds of ways we could do that. And in the end, Richard and I'm going to tell you that, your best ways to communicate with your elected officials. So our lawyers, we've already contacted our legal team. They're watching, they're aware. And when the time comes, we will push forward with probably, legal action if warranted. And I feel like it will be warranted at that time for another voucher lawsuit. We are concerned, the makeup of the Supreme Court has changed. So our big advocate had to retire out. He is no longer on the court. So we may not have the same reaction as we did. Our ask is to put it on the ballot. Let the people decide. Instead, if you want to change the Constitution to allow vouchers, then do that. But go ahead and just put it on the ballot and let the people of South Carolina to decide. Such a big thing like this, that's our ask. So that is all I have on vouchers. And then I think I'm going to turn it back to Kat for certification.
Yeah, so certification. We've got a couple of things that we're looking at. The first thing I would say is again, this Education Assistance Act is very helpful on this front. Districts distribute how many hours of certification you get. So, through a 5-year period, you need to get 120 hours of recertification. While some districts will utilize, their PDs to help students be able to help teachers be able to get that certification, so that by the time they get to the end of the 5 years, they've got that 120 hours. Some districts don't help out at all, so that teachers are coming out of pocket and paying for that. The Education Assistance Act is going to help us out by forcing all the districts to utilize the professional development time they already have to make opportunities for teachers to build that 120 hours. I think we also have some hopes that we are going to make it a little easier for our education students coming up out of college to get through the praxis. And Mary Rita might have to help me on that one, but I am aware that we're trying to figure out ways to bring more teachers in and hold on to them and stop making certification a reason for teachers to leave. So hopefully, again, we will see a better situation with our recertification for our veteran teachers and for our new teachers.
Okay. I think I'm back up with the discipline bills that we hope to see introduced. And you guys, a reminder, this is a game of chess, not checkers. It's a 2-year cycle. So they started out fresh this year, and we've got the rest of this session and part of the next session to get things passed. So sometimes it's, you introduce things, they'll morph into something that we want by the end of the next year. So one big one is discipline. And we have 2 examples that we've given to Senator Hembree's office. We actually went and met with him. Our team met with him this week, and we have given it to Shannon Erickson on the House, some examples that we found from other states. And we would love to get your feedback on those. We can share what Texas is doing and what Alabama does. Texas does something called Chapter 37, and it's not to be used lightly. And I would like to say, we don't want to start any child on the school to prison pipeline. However, I feel very strongly that children can't come to school and physically and verbally assault our employees, and it has to stop. A lot of people have left the classroom over this, and probably once a week in last spring, I was getting a call from someone who had experienced that kind of behavior from children. So we're seeing it at a younger and younger age, and the elementary schools just aren't set up for alternative schools like the high schools are. So we're going to have to work with this. So in Texas, they do something called a Chapter 37. And basically, each school has a committee, like a discipline committee. And as a teacher, so one of our members called and she had written up a kid over 40 times, and the child finally hit her right before Christmas. And I was like, "What do you mean 45 times you wrote this child up and nothing happened?" And she's like, "Yeah, it's common." And we hear that from y'all all the time, that administrators just, they don't do any, the behavior continues. So in Texas, that teacher could have, at referral number 10, said, "Okay, I'm going to chapter 37 this child." And then when you chapter 37 a child, they have to remove that child from that environment. So that child can no longer attend your class until the committee gets together, decide what to do with this child who's got some issues going on. So the committee can either decide, well, we're going to put him in another classroom, we're going to put him in another school, we need to put him out, or you, the teacher, like you've got too many chapter 37s, the teacher has a discipline problem. And it hurts my heart to say that, but we know that there are some teachers that could use a little extra support in there. So, and that may be what the committee comes back and says, because maybe this problem child is only a problem in one classroom. So there could be lots of different scenarios to not the teacher. The teacher wouldn't go to a new school, but the child could be moved to a different school versus expelling them. So there's lots of different things that could happen, but it really takes it out of the administrator's hand at that time, because the committee would not have an administrator on it. There would be 3 educators plus someone that's appointed by admin gets to pick one of them. So it seems a little complicated, but it really would be a school way to manage the behaviors of what's going on. And then we could get some help for the child. Maybe the child is experiencing the loss of a parent. Maybe there's something going on that we don't know. Or maybe the child just doesn't belong in this environment and they need to have a little time out longer than, sitting in the office for today. So that's what Texas does. And it's called Chapter 37. It's pages and pages long. And there's parts of it we like and parts of it. But I have talked to the people in Texas, and actually the Texas Teachers Association is the one that came up with it. So it is, your fellow members came up with Chapter 37. The second one, Mary Rita knows more about it. It's the Alabama version, and they call it the Teacher Bill of Rights. Kind of does the same thing, but it's a little more cut and dry. There's not a committee. There's not a group of people that make this decision. But if a child is acting up or being disruptive and you cannot teach, the teacher has the right for that child to be removed and they can't come back into the class. So in Alabama, there's like steps, like step 1, you had to do this. Step 2, you do this. Step 3. But then at the end, the child's just gone. Like you cannot do anything. So like the stories that like Paige just said, like those kind of things, there would be a little more punishment, a little more consequence to things that are going on in our classrooms that are really preventing other people from learning. So we, a little tough love here on figuring out the Alabama Teacher Bill of Rights and the Texas Chapter 37. What we're hoping is by getting this into the hands of, we'll call them the playmakers, Senator Hembry and Shannon Erickson, they can give that to their committee or work through it. And we're working through it with them. Like Shannon Erickson has already said, hey, can you guys come and meet with me? Let's pull out what we like about each one and create our own South Carolina version of a discipline bill. We have seen some discipline bills by, Tommy Pope's got one out there that's going to give some kind of punishment to if you assault a school employee. And I think Collins has some bills out there. Like there's several discipline bills out there floating around. So we're kind of hoping that we can be the leader on this. We need your input. If you came here from another district that has a good discipline policy, or you've heard about good discipline policies that are out there, please feel free to reach out and let us know, because we really want to get ahead of that. We feel like that's one of the reasons parents are looking around and maybe want to put their child in a private school. They want to put them in a charter school because they feel like it would be safer. They're smaller classes, and all of the the discipline problems that you're hearing about in our schools don't go on in those places because they just don't tolerate it like we do. So we will, keep you posted on that, but that is one of our big initiatives. It has been for years, and really the survey kind of brought it home. And I think Mary Rita, I don't know if she told y'all this, but over half the people that answered our survey said they had experienced some type of physical or verbal abuse from a student. And that's really unacceptable. Like we can't keep doing that. And when they call me and it's a young person, I'll immediately say, well, press charges. Then I call our lawyer and he's like, Sherry, you can't press charges on a 5-year-old. I'm like, well, what do you do with a 5-year-old then who headbutted you or threw a chair at you? Or, there has to be some consequences to those behaviors. So we're looking into all of that. And I think today it was even brought up like some parental situations that one district's thinking about doing around truancy. Like, well, what do you do when your children won't come to school? So they're looking at putting a little more teeth into, if they're not there, we can't teach them. So all that's kind of out there floating around, but we heard you, we're working on it. And actually we're working with what I call our cousins to make sure that we're all on the same page. We want children to have an education, but we also want you to be safe in your work environment and the other students to be safe in their work environment. So we really feel like it's important to get ahead of the discipline, and we're working on it. So I think now when we're out of the topics that we had on there to talk about, if you have any, please put them in the chat. But I would like to give our capital consultants a moment to share with you, your best way. If you wanted to contact a House member right now about vouchers to say, hey, please don't vote for vouchers, like what are some tips or things you should start with, or any tips or tricks that you guys may have coming from, Annie, Katie, or Richard?
Okay. Annie texted me. She wanted me to lead off so she can correct me on everything I'm saying. Just real quickly, we have been lobbying for the SCEA for 17 years. I've been lobbying much longer than that. Annie and I operate the largest lobbying firm in South Carolina. Lobbying is a game of relationships, and we're fortunate that we've been doing it so long. We're able to have personal relationships with committee chairmen and those type of people. Real quick, and I'm going to be brief. About 2,500 bills a year are introduced, and only 400 or 500 of those actually pass. So we call ourselves professional killers because we try to kill more bills than we try to pass. We look at all those bills, we read them all, we send them over to the SCEA and suggest ones that might be more pertinent to educational issues. And then in our Monday meetings, we talk about what we want to do if those bills are coming up for debate. We do have a supermajority now in the House and Senate, and of course a Republican governor. We have a Republican everything now in South Carolina. So we work around that supermajority with bills like we're mentioning here today, bills that are meaningful, and we talk about hopefully getting the good bills to pass. The speaker and the committee chairman in the legislature pretty much control the agenda. And in reality, if the speaker or the Republican majority don't like a bill, its chances of succeeding are poor, just like in Washington, just like in North Carolina, just like everywhere. But that agenda is set during the week, and we are able to find out kind of what's going to be on the agenda. And many times we're able to tell our people whether a bill in a committee has a chance of passing or not. And that's what we do. The best way, to Sherry's point, and I know Annie will talk about this too, is always, if you can see, the first thing is have a relationship with your legislator. Not just when you need something, but let's just use a female legislator just became a mother. Congratulate them if you're able to find out that information. But any way you can keep a dialogue going with them throughout the year other than when you just need them. But it's also important to stay in touch with them. If you see them in church, introduce yourself. If you see them in the grocery store, introduce yourself. Nothing is better in communicating than in person. In person and back home sometimes when they're more relaxed. Just don't do it on a Sunday. But back home in person is always best. Second best is in person at the State House. They're very, very busy, and sometimes it's hard to get in person. But sometimes we can set those up, and in person always is good too. Third best is by phone. That works better. The worst of anything you can do is sign a petition. petitions are worthless. They're called pressure mail. I happen to work in Washington D.C., and petitions didn't get much attention, and they do get a little attention in Columbia, but not much. But petitions don't work because it's pressure mail. We know they're generated by a group, and but anyway, back home, in person at the State House and by phone. Emails work. Emails will be kind of down the list because they get so many of them. But the main thing is just have a relationship, and nothing is more important than a constituent calling their legislator. Obviously, lobbyists have their job to do, and we know how to get inside and work the inner circles and get a bill scheduled or get a committee bill delayed, and we can do all that stuff. But nothing is more important than you back home calling your legislator and using the talking points we supplied to you from the South Carolina Education Association. That's extremely important. Your voice matters. Your voice carries a lot of weight, and we'll do our dead level best to help you with talking points and all those things. Annie, you want to pick up here?
Sure.
I know, a little short.
Yeah, happy to. So just to kind of segue, I mean, one of the most important things you can do to communicate with your legislator is what you're already doing, which is to be engaged with your professional association. So one thing that we really try to do and work as a team to create is those talking points that Richard mentioned. The purpose of that is so that everybody is developing and using the same message when we're talking to legislators. We want to kind of hit those points quickly and succinctly. I saw somebody in the chat earlier was asking for bill numbers. That's fantastic. A lot of our bills have nicknames you'll hear us talk about. Now we might call a bill the voucher bill, but others might call it the Education Improvement Act. They might call it the Education Scholarship Fund. So it's important to use those bill numbers and the terminology that legislators will understand. It is important that we all recognize, we in South Carolina have part-time legislators. So for the most part, they have full-time jobs otherwise. And the number of issues that are coming before them on a daily basis is substantial. It varies anything from kind of like on this call, but it varies from anything from taxes, criminal issues, to education, to spending. So it really is all across the board. So it's important that we have points that are very, again, succinct in language that makes sense to them. If we go and start talking to a legislator about praxis, many of them are not going to know what that is. So it's important that we break it down in a way that they can understand without looking up those terms, just understanding those limitations on time. Richard hit most of the good points. Definitely, I would say a call in person is always better. We know that can be intimidating, but you have your resources with the SCEA. This entire team that's on will be glad to kind of talk you through how to call your legislator, how to get in touch. I think Caleb over in the chat put some links up so you can see. You put your address in on the State House website. And I have a 6-week-old that's screaming, so I apologize.
First we've heard him.
Future student, want to be part of the action. But he, excuse me. So we will be glad to walk you through that process. They do want to hear from you. They want to hear from constituents on these discipline issues. That is so important. And y'all, some of you are doing in the chat, sharing, what is really happening. And it's not just anecdotal when it's a story coming from you. So that is so helpful in developing that messaging.
Thank you, Capital. And Katie, do you have anything to add? Katie's a quiet behind the scenes.
A quiet force.
Yeah, I mean, Richard and Annie obviously summed it up pretty well. My job is kind of more monitoring those hundreds of bills that get right across the desk every session, which is a big task, and just keeping everyone up to speed on what bills affect education the most. And so, that's
well, and we thank all of you for being part of the team. And then I think Mary Rita has some announcements.
I do. We have a couple of asks for you. I have two. Kat has one. And so my first ask is that if the reason you're here is because you're interested, and this might just be your thing, and you may not have gotten, you should have, because we've set this out many ways, but maybe you just didn't see the lobby day request. We are hosting a lobby day. It's actually an overnight event. So you would come up on next Tuesday on the 25th after work. We're going to have dinner at headquarters, and then we're going to have just like a mini session before we go over to the State House the next day, just to prepare you. And so that's on the 25th. And then the next day we have a shuttle that's going to be taking us to the State House, or you could drive on your own and try to find that crazy parking spot, because I've been learning how to navigate that. And then we have all kinds of things planned that day at the State House. So some fun, some serious, and just a day for you to understand just exactly what kind of goes on over there. That's the first ask. So in the chat, there should be the RSVP for lobby day. If you would need to take a personal day or a day without pay. Some people will allow you to take a professional day, depending on your school district. So you would just have to ask. You just cannot take a sick day to come to this event. And then the second ask is, we have something called regional contact teams, and we're renaming them PALS, which is political and legislative support teams. So this team is in the areas that we have large concentrations. So we have Charleston, we have Rock Hill, York area, we have Greenville, we have Columbia, those bigger areas, Horry. We have teams of educators who are like the point of contacts for us. And if we have, like today, we were trying to get out these hustles to all of you to make sure that you remembered about tonight. So we send those out to regional contact team leaders, and they can do some of the hustles, or sometimes they might send them out to some of their team members and say, hey, help out with these hustles. So it's kind of like the old phone tree thing that we used to have, but it's actually getting more members engaged. So if this is something you think you might be interested in, just shoot me an email at mwatson. I think Caleb's going to put it in the chat. And I'd be more than happy to explain how that works. And that.
Okay, yeah. So our last, I think, well, I don't know if we're last, but one of the things we definitely want to start asking for is for people to, teachers in the classroom, to wear red on Wednesdays. And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to go all out on social media and take a picture of yourself. Sometimes you'll see that on, Facebook, Instagram, people taking pictures of themselves in red and talking about, what their advocacy is. Really just by wearing red on Wednesdays, it kind of signifies that, there's something close to your heart that you want to talk about when it comes to education. And it's a nice way to tell someone, today I'm wearing red. It's Wednesday. And so when I talk to teachers today, I always start with, well, it's Wednesday, so I'm wearing red, and I'm worried about our 504s. I'm worried about this lawsuit that's happening for our students. I'm not a SPED teacher, but I have lots of SPED teachers that I work with, and I worry about them, and I'm thinking about them. And it's just kind of a nice way to show your solidarity and open that conversation with another teacher to hear what, maybe what are their concerns about their classroom. And so, you really can just get it started very, very small like that. Ask your neighbor teacher, like, hey, do you want to wear red with me on Wednesday? And, we have done this in the past, and there's just something about walking around the school and seeing a few teachers in red. So at the school that I teach at, we didn't have to make a big announcement, but, from week past to this week, there are, 10 or 11 teachers that were walking around in red, and like we're talking to each other about, things that we're hearing about, and, the SPED teachers that we're talking to. And here in Berkeley, our librarians, our ELA teachers, they've lost discus. So it's just a way of saying, there are things that we're concerned about, and we're willing to talk to each other about it. So it can start small like that. And so we would like to bring that back, to call that back, and start asking our teachers and support staff, everybody that cares about public education, to wear red on Wednesday. And like, or you can go big and you can do what I do is like, post on Facebook, but you can start small. And like I said, it's a way of showing that we're all on the same team. We're all in this together. So, like I said, it's just a basic small ask, but if we all do it together, it makes a really big impact.
Okay, and then I have two more things. Somebody had a DEI question, and I was going to answer, but Richard said he's got some answers. Then Tom has a comment too, so I don't know. Tom, you want to go ahead?
Sure, I appreciate it, Sherry. Thank you. I just want to thank everybody for being here tonight, and also just to let you know that we've got a really great team here. And these are folks who are looking out for your best interests as educators. And what's also important about that is that you have a role on that team too, whether it's out at a regional contact team or whether it's doing other work as a member organizer, whatever it might be. We need you as part of this team. And I think we need to be vocal, we need to be visible, and we need to be vital. And so we need to be seen, we need to be heard, and by vital, we need to grow the SCEA. So,
Tom, if I may, I want to go back at you on something.
Yes.
I have enjoyed, I've worked with many different presidents, many different groups over 17 years. But this team assembled here today that we have are hardworking. I just look at, I don't think Sherry sleeps at night. Sherry's got to go get some sleep. But the team itself, Tom, your professionalism, Mary Rita, Caleb, just the attention that you give to detail is very refreshing and will help very much in our success. So the team at SCEA does a wonderful job, and sometimes that goes unrecognized.
Thank you. We appreciate that, Richard. We thank you, and our partners at Capital Consultant and all that you do. So I just wanted to say that and call attention to this team, and also for you to take part as well. And we look forward to seeing you at Lobby Day. We look forward to seeing you at other events as well. And just wanted to say thank you. So Sherry, I'll turn it back over to you.
I see Craig. Craig, I've already written your name down because from New Jersey, we're going to tap into you. Like we are going to find you and talk to you. So put your number somewhere or send it to somebody because I do need to talk to you. We do have a question about DEI, but I would say, Craig, not enough. Like we need more members. We are definitely not a New Jersey in this, so we definitely need we need more members. But the DEI question is out there, and it's been on a lot of people's minds. We saw a lot of chatter about 504s and Alan Wilson. His letter where he said, "Wait a minute, I'm only signed on to the lawsuit about the part of 504s that deals with gender dysmorphia, but no one else is going to lose their 504." Well, we've already talked to our NEA legal team about that. They're like, well, that's not what the lawsuit says. So the other thing NEA's asked is that if you know of anyone who's been harmed or injured by anything going on in DC, that our legal team wants to talk to them. So please let us know if you are one of those folks. Contact us privately. We won't get into that here. But let us know if there's something going on. We've heard some things going on at some of the colleges that we need to get in touch with some folks. But DEI, Richard, what do you got on DEI?
A couple of things, and it's important to note that I mentioned supermajority before, and I call it the golden rule. Those who have the gold rule, and you got a supermajority, and pretty much the Republicans are going to control all that. You've got a governor that's very close to President Trump. So DEI is going to go away. I mean, bottom line, it's also interesting to note that not one tax dollar has ever been spent for DEI in South Carolina. That came up in a committee this past week, and both a Republican senator and a Democratic senator made that statement. But as far as DEI sticking around in South Carolina, the brutal reality of that is it's probably not. and Governor McMaster is going to be the ringleader of that. And it obviously schools and colleges are going to be hit with a lot of funding taken away from them, and anybody that practices DEI is going to have the wrath of both the legislature against them and the governor's office. So it's just like everywhere else across the country. It'll be very anti-DEI here now.
And do we see any of that trickling down into K-12? Because right now they're talking a lot about, higher ed, but like
anything DEI related is going to be across the board.
Well, I guess this might be a question for Annie, or did she go deal with the baby?
we had to.
She had to go deal with her son.
How do you have a private company like Costco that wants to keep their DEI, and how could
No federal
they
funding.
don't get federal funding
federal.
anyway? So how could you tell a business you will not do business here with DEI? So Annie, is that legal?
It will be like everything else going on. Shaw says hello, everybody. We will, like everything else right now, it is all that is going to be so litigated. There will be for years and years to come. So really, it's similar to the voucher debate. We're on one side saying it's illegal, it's unconstitutional, you can't do it. You got the other folks, the proponents, that say it is, and the battle is really going to be fought and continue to be fought in the courts on both issues.
Mm-hmm. And even in those private situations, let's just use Volvo down in Charleston. If Volvo decided to keep practicing DEI, the governor's office and everybody, they're going to come down so hard on them, they'll put so much pressure that it'll be hard to stand up to that kind of pressure, because they control money that Volvo gets. Like, it's political pressure they can put on them regardless of federal funding or not.
Okay. Were there any more questions? We did hear about, and we saw this on the chatter and social media this weekend, that there is a program that USC has, and it's labeled, I think it's called Dream SC, and they have a partnership with the local school district, and they really try to get our support staff into the teaching profession. So it may be a teacher's aide or a secretary that wants to go back to school to be a teacher. They wrote up their grant with DEI language in it because that's what they asked for, but it is not specifically for any one group of people. But then these 15 students and the faculty were told, your funding's been cut off, your mid-year, I don't know what they're going to do about their tuition, their classes. And so we've asked, we did talk to Richard Danny about this too, like, will USC step up and sue? And we're like, no, we doubt that USC would step out because they're a state-funded school. They're not going to risk the anger of the governor or what could come with that. But those students may actually have a case that their schooling has been prevented now because the DEI situation that's going on. So we are reaching out to them. If you saw some of that story, or you hear more stories like that of people that have been impacted, then let us know. People are ramping up their legal arm of their associations. I know we are. I know NEA's legal team is, they're beefing up. And the other thing they tell us is get your partner people ready. I call them our cousins. But figure out who your local chapters are of people in your locals. We really need strong locals. If you are in a local that is not where it needs to be, or you don't know who your local president is, get in touch with us, because we really need to beef up our association. As Tom was going, like, you play a vital part in all this. The people on this team are a great team, but we can't do this alone. Like, 10 of us can't carry the water of all of this. Like, we need all of you to have your cup full of water to help pour into this bucket of work, because that's where we're going to make some movement. And it's not going to happen quickly. It's going to be a slow march on to 2026 is what I'm saying. It's a slow march, but we can't stop. We can't get frustrated. We have to realize that we're all in this together, and you do have a support team with the SCEA.
Okay.
Sure. I've been talking to some University of South Carolina people today. They are expecting to lose millions and millions and millions of dollars because of the new administration. I mean, they're very, very
Are they
worried.
ready to do anything about it, though, Richard? Are they going to just, what are they?
I mean, they're part of, the the golden rule part.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess I think that brings us to the end. Todd Schultz, we're right at 8 o'clock. Anybody else for the good of the? Are there any other questions in the chat that we have not addressed?
I haven't seen any that we haven't addressed yet. We can go back and read through them though, and if folks don't feel like their questions were asked, they certainly can reach out to their UniServe director, to really anyone here on the call. I just want to thank everybody for their time tonight and for your leadership. I want to thank everybody who tuned in. There was a lot of engagement and conversation, and hopefully folks learned what they need to know. And of course, they can always go to our website at the SCEA.org. And for anybody who's might be watching who is not currently a member of our association, you can join right now online at jointhescea.org. We need all hands on deck. Really, we need every educator in South Carolina, and that includes anyone who works in a public school building, bus drivers, cafeteria workers, admins. We need everybody who's working in public schools to be a part of our movement, so we can help support the kind of policies that our educators and students need. But thanks to everybody who showed up tonight and shared your thoughts and important information for educators to know. Before we go, I have a couple of things that I just want to promote for coming up next, the next few weeks. We have on Sunday, we'll be having this is a taped conversation with Deborah Alvarado from Hispanic Alliance. She's going to be talking about how educators can best support Hispanic students. There's been a lot of information going around social media about ICE raids and things like that. So we talk about that and clear up some of that information so that folks know exactly what they need to do. It's a very practical conversation. There's lots of resources that she and Hispanic Alliance share, and there are also some tips for creating the kind of environment that those students need. Next week, this time, it'll be actually, sorry, not next week, March 26th, at 7 o'clock, we're going to have a conversation with Derek Black. Speaking of DEI, we're going to be talking about dangerous learning, censorship, race, and education through the lens of history. So we want to make sure you mark your calendars for that. Some folks mentioned that they connect with our cool resources. If you are an induction teacher in South Carolina, those are folks in the first 5 years of their career, or you know someone who is a new teacher, make sure they're aware of this free resource that we provide. You don't have to be a member. Of course, we will invite those folks into membership, but this is called Cool Coaching. It's free, it's online, it's one-to-one support. Every Tuesday and Thursday evening, it's all online from 6 to 8 o'clock. You just go to cool.us/coaching. And once you go there, you will go into one of the breakout rooms with Angie, Stephanie, or Marcella, and you can ask them all kinds of questions that you might have that maybe you don't want to ask someone at your school. Maybe you're having some issues that you're kind of scared to talk about with your administration or with a fellow teacher, and these folks can give you that kind of coaching that you need. Maybe you just need ideas for lessons, or you have some discipline issues and you just need some advice. These folks will provide that for free every Tuesday and Thursday night. We are running out of space for our wellness retreats. If you are an educator in South Carolina, working in a public school in South Carolina, you're eligible to apply to attend one of our 2 retreats this summer, June 25th through the 27th, or July 23rd through the 25th in Old Fort, North Carolina. Information on that can be found on our website at cool.us/retreats. You can read or watch videos that are testimonials, and you can sort of see pictures and what's involved with a wellness retreat. A lot of folks don't know what that is, but essentially you're going to spend some time prioritizing your own wellness and working with facilitators who can help you learn about mindfulness practices, yoga, and other self-care practices in an environment that's really beautiful with other educators. So if you are interested in that, make sure you head on over to the website. Again, thanks to all of our leaders at the SCEA, and thank you for tuning in. We hope this information and this live stream has been helpful to you. If you didn't get a chance to watch it live, you can always go back and watch it on social media. It'll be archived there. We will also be posting this recording to the Cool website and rebroadcasting tonight's program later on this week. Again, have a great week. Stay warm, stay safe, and we will see you on our live stream Sunday at 4 o'clock with Deborah Alvarado. Until then, have a great week.
Together we learn, together we grow, together we heal, together we flow. Be cool, every teacher, every school. Be cool, every teacher, every school. Be cool, every teacher, every school.